Welcome to the African Strata, where every layer tells a new story. Support the channel. Like, subscribe, and share for more real African stories.
I thought I was coming home, back to the roots. From protests in Atlanta to poetry slams in Brooklyn, I'd always heard it. Go to Africa. That's where your spirit resets. So I did. I packed a journal, a camera, and every Malcolm X quote I ever memorized. Landed in Ouagadougou, expected rhythm, dust, and maybe a little healing. What I didn't expect was him. A 3-4-year-old army captain, no suit, no speeches, who overthrew a government and then started fixing things, real things, like food, medicine, land, not metaphors, not vibes, outcomes. At first, I wanted to push back. Isn't this anti-democratic? Isn't he part of the problem? But then I saw a mother in Koudougou crying because her son finally got antibiotics without waiting 6 months. I saw teachers being paid on time. I saw kids in uniforms where there used to be rags. And suddenly, my questions started turning inward. I came here to find where I came from. Instead, I found a man who made me question everything I left behind. So let me ask you, if the place we call developing is doing better at delivering, what exactly are we still pretending to lead? Think on that. And if it stings a little, good. That means you're still awake. Back in the States, we chant, no justice, no peace. We march for reparations. We demand systemic change. We wear t-shirts that say, equity now. Traoré didn't print the slogans. He paved the damn road. Since 2022, his government has redistributed over 150,000 hectares of unused land to farming cooperatives, mostly women-run. They didn't fill out grant applications. They just planted. Primary school attendance in rural provinces up by 26% thanks to the national lunch program he scaled without waiting for international guidance. Meanwhile, U.S. public schools are still rationing lunch milk. And the kicker? Burkina Faso's new national pharma lab is now producing generic antibiotics and anti-malaria meds for 7 West African countries, at a cost 60% lower than the imported stuff the NGOs use to hand out. I've stood outside clinics in Detroit where people begged for insulin. Here they're building labs. No panels, no partnerships. No public-private synergy initiatives. Just sovereignty with a scalpel. That's when it hit me. In America, we keep waiting for justice to be approved. In Burkina Faso, they're serving it hot. No permission slip needed. Now you tell me, who's really behind? And if you're feeling that knot in your chest, don't scroll past it. Sit in it, then hit share. Because maybe justice doesn't need hashtags anymore. Maybe it needs harvests. I used to believe we were the blueprint, land of the free, leader of the world. Until I saw what freedom looked like somewhere else. Let's talk facts. In the US, 1 in 10 households struggle with food insecurity. More than 500,000 people sleep unsheltered on any given night. We spend $877 billion on defense, but somehow 20% of black women still lack access to basic prenatal care. Yet we look at countries like Burkina Faso and say, they're struggling. Burkina Faso, under sanctions with no IMF safety net, launched mobile health clinics that now cover 17 new provinces. They're not perfect, but they're showing up. Meanwhile, we wait 4 weeks for a primary care appointment in New York City. Traoré took office during crisis terror attacks, food shortages, zero Western backing. 2 years in, he's restructured the tax system to fund local infrastructure and built 98 rural bridges to reconnect isolated villages to trade routes. We built bike lanes in gentrified districts and called it equity. Here's what that says to me. Maybe freedom isn't about waving a flag. Maybe it's about being able to afford rice, reach a doctor, send your kid to school without selling your car. Burkina Faso, for all its headlines, is putting basic dignity back into policy. And America? We're still arguing about whether healthcare is a right or a privilege, while this so-called military regime just made birth control free. That's not irony, that's indictment. So here's the ask. If you're tired of defending a system that can't defend its own people, say something. Drop a comment. Or send this to someone still living in the illusion. Because if this is what underdeveloped looks like, maybe we're the ones who need developing. No press conferences, no TED Talks, no carefully worded statements of concern. Traoré doesn't do optics, he does outcomes. And yet somehow his silence carries farther than our entire media machine. When he shut down French military bases, he didn't live stream it. He just posted a one-line decree. Next day, thousands in the streets. Not to protest, but to thank him. I've seen American senators give 45-minute speeches and move nothing. This guy moves borders and barely says a word. He's not branding a movement. He is the movement. And don't get me wrong, I'm a product of the era of messaging. I've written open letters, held signs, retweeted revolution. But in Burkina Faso, change isn't trending. It's material. Kids getting breakfast, women receiving land titles, rural communities building roads with military support, not under military threat. That doesn't go viral on US Twitter, but it goes deep. When's the last time your elected official made change that didn't need a PR rollout? When's the last time results spoke louder than rhetoric? You don't need to agree with his methods, but you can't ignore the math. And if that bothers you, if something in you wants to explain it away, pause. Ask yourself, do you want democracy? Or do you want dignity that doesn't embarrass your ideology? Because sometimes the quietest men make the loudest history. And if that makes you shift in your seat, good. That means you're still listening. So don't stay silent now. Drop a thought. Start a thread. Or just say it out loud. This isn't what I expected, but maybe it's what we needed. In the US, we love a good task force, a commission, a 6-month exploratory report. When kids go hungry, we study it. When the grid fails, we debate it. When black communities cry out, we offer healing spaces and maybe a mural. Traoré, he offered results. In just under 2 years, Burkina Faso increased grain reserves by 240%, stabilizing food prices during the drought, trained and deployed over 6,000 rural health workers, reaching zones where even UN programs pulled out. Built a regional logistics hub to bypass foreign-controlled ports, cutting basic goods costs by up to 35%. Meanwhile, back home, we're still asking how to fix Flint's water, still letting insulin-bankrupt families, still watching politicians fund wars faster than school meals. This isn't about hero worship. This is about functional governance. Traoré doesn't romanticize revolution. He engineers efficiency. And here's what shook me most. He's not saying, look at me. He's saying, look what happens when no one's in the way. No investors to please, no think tanks to vet his next move, no polling data dictating his urgency, just problems and solutions. Straight line. So the next time someone tells you change takes time, ask them why Burkina Faso did more in 24 months than we did in 2 decades. Because if they can do it with fewer resources, under sanctions and in the middle of conflict, then what's our excuse? No, really, what is our excuse? And if you've got one, I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. Let's trade excuses for blueprints. Let's be real, Traoré didn't just piss off France. He pissed off the script. Because for decades, we've been the authors of what stability means. We built the indexes, funded the observers, signed off on what counts as legitimate. And then along comes a 3-4-year-old with zero permission, who cancels IMF deals, ejects military bases, nationalizes gold, and somehow doesn't fail. That wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to become a cautionary tale. Instead, he became a case study we're too scared to publish. And that's the real reason Western media keeps reaching for the word strongman. Because effective leader would make us look weak. See, Traoré didn't just reject empire, he exposed it. He showed us that our trillion-dollar systems might not be necessary, and worse, that they might be the thing holding others back. And we hate that mirror. Because if his chaos brings stability, if his rejection brings results, if his silence moves people more than our campaigns, then the thing we called order was never order. It was compliance. And no empire survives long when people stop pretending. So here's the reflection we don't want to see. A leader with no credentials doing better than those who trained in Harvard and LSE. A country under sanctions outpacing those under guidance. A people who stopped asking and started acting. If that flips your stomach a little, good. It means your programming is glitching, so say it out loud. What if the problem was never their instability, but our control? And if that scares you, you're not alone, but silence won't save you either. In the US, we wait. We wait for budget approvals, for midterms, for bipartisan consensus that never comes, for task forces that release reports no one reads. Meanwhile, Traoré? He didn't wait for democracy to fix itself. He just fixed what he could reach. No capacity-building workshops. No white papers. Just boots in the mud and grain in the warehouses. He reallocated army units to build roads in conflict zones, trained farmers in reclaimed territories, converted seized insurgent camps into school sites, yes, school sites. And while we debated what public safety even means, he cut rural crime rates by nearly 40%, not through surveillance, but by giving people something to protect. Let me put it plainly. In America, we wait for things to become possible. In Burkina Faso, they move until things become inevitable. So here's the contrast that haunts me. We keep asking when. He keeps asking why not. Why not feed people now? Why not skip the press release and go straight to the policy? Why not act before the poll numbers say it's safe? He didn't wait for perfect. He moved with what he had and proved it was enough. That's leadership. That's velocity. And that's exactly why the old system wants him labeled reckless, because he makes hesitation look like failure. So now I'll ask you, what are you waiting for? A better president? A new party? A 5-point plan that checks all your boxes? Maybe change doesn't come after the system evolves. Maybe change comes when someone stops asking permission. And if that unnerves you, good. Now pass it on. Let others feel it too. Everyone keeps saying, Traoré is the future of Africa. But they're wrong. He's the reckoning of the West. Because everything we told ourselves, that democracy needs decades, that poor nations can't govern themselves, that leadership without our training leads to disaster, he broke all of it. And he did it while we were still debating who gets to use the term progressive. Let's look around. Burkina Faso just signed a trilateral alliance with Mali and Niger. Military, economic, cultural. They're building a new bloc, one not defined by the UN, NATO, or Paris. And here's the kicker. They don't want inclusion. They want independence. That scares us more than tanks, because Traoré didn't ask to lead the global south. He just stopped asking us for instructions. And that right there is the moment the room went quiet. He's not asking to be celebrated. He's not applying for legitimacy. He's building, delivering, shifting, and letting the world see what happens when the myth breaks. The myth that says empire is necessary, that aid is generosity, that control equals order. He didn't burn that myth, he just ignored it. And now, others are following, not with slogans, but with grain silos, power grids, and firewalls against foreign control. So no, he's not the future of Africa. Africa has many futures. He's our wake-up call. He's the reason we have to stop measuring legitimacy by how fluent a leader is in Western talking points. He's why we need to ask, if the so-called fragile states are now functioning, what does that make us? So if this shook you, don't sit with it in silence. Talk it out. Post it. Debate it. Share it, because the most revolutionary thing we can do right now is admit that the revolution already started, and we weren't the ones leading it.